Welcome to another edition of the AMSAT Newsreel.
A 501c3 nonprofit organization that designs, builds, launches, and operates amateur radio satellites in space.
We actually have, the hams actually have satellites?
We have satellites. In fact, India launched a satellite about 10 days ago. It's the 52nd amateur satellite to be in operation in space.
So how does one go about getting a satellite in space?
Well, the way amateurs have done it in the past, the first one was launched back in 1961. Satellites that are launched are called Oscar, and the first one was therefore Oscar 1. Oscar stands for Orbiting Satellite Carrying Amateur Radio. And basically it was built in the garage of two guys out in California. They worked out a deal where it was launched as part of a launch out of Vandenberg Air Force Base. And in fact, that particular satellite, when it was launched, was the first time that two satellites were launched from the same launch vehicle. Because the primary payload was the reason why the launch took place, and they happened to piggyback an Oscar 1 satellite that was battery operated, sent a CW signal, and it died after about 3 weeks, but it was the first amateur radio satellite to be launched. Since that time, a number of organizations around the world have been put together. Our organization was organized in 1969, and so we now celebrated our 35th anniversary last year, and we've launched a number of satellites since that time. And so basically what we do is we identify an opportunity. We take the launches that nobody else wants. For example, if you got a new launch vehicle being developed and it hasn't been tested yet, you know, a commercial guy does not want to put his $500 million satellite on it because it might not reach orbit. But you need to still put ballast or weight on that satellite, so we will take that slot. And so therefore we work out arrangements with launch agencies that are looking for payloads that can fit on their vehicles.
So it's basically you get to use it for free?
We still have to pay something to them for some of the costs that they incur. But we can develop satellites significantly cheaper than a commercial organization. First of all, we're using volunteers that are doing this. Second, we're building satellites that are relatively smaller than commercial satellites. So we basically do a fundraising campaign to be able to afford to buy the components that we need. We use our members to actually do the development and testing, and then we work and try to find a launch authority that's looking to work with us to actually arrange for a launch.
So about how big are the radio satellites?
Well, they vary in size. The one we last launched a satellite by AMSAT was done in June of 2004. It was launched at Baikonur by the Russians on a former ICBM. It was a missile that was launched from an underground silo and popped out of the ground just like a warhead. Yeah. But instead of heading toward Washington, D.C., it was heading toward the North Pole and placed in a polar orbit with our satellite and 7 other satellites. And so we basically built that satellite. It was a 9-inch cube, weighs about 25 pounds, and it was launched a year ago, next month.
I always thought of satellites as being rather large.
Different satellites have different capabilities, and so you sort of figure out what you want to do and therefore design the satellite around your particular requirement. Keep in mind, too, that over the last 15 years there's been a tremendous improvement in the technological capabilities of our components and the like. So the satellite we launched last year, which was a 25-pound 9x9x9 cube, has more than twice the capability of a similar sized satellite we launched in 1990. And so you can do a lot more with a lot less, if you will, in terms of the weight and size of a satellite. We're building a new satellite called Eagle, which we hope to launch by 2009. That one's now projected to be about 80 kilograms versus 12 kilograms for Echo that was launched last year. So you see different size satellites with different capabilities. Clearly the size has an impact on the size of the solar cells you can put on it, which means how much power you can generate, which means, you know, what can you do with that much power, be able to do a transmit or put experiments on board or whatever.
And what do these satellites do?
We use them for communications. They have different features, different capabilities. Typically, amateurs will use a satellite to extend the range of their coverage. And so if you think about a satellite being in orbit, circling the globe, it's got a footprint. And the height of the satellite above the Earth will dictate the size of the footprint. So a LEO satellite, a low Earth orbit satellite, like ECHO that was launched last year, may have a footprint that's 700 kilometers wide. So that means if I'm in Dayton, Ohio, I can work Canada, and I can work Florida, and I can work past the Mississippi River into the Midwest. I live in North Carolina, and I have in fact worked the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, Oregon, and the like, because the satellite was coming right through the middle of the country, and therefore was on the leading edge of the footprint, and the other guy was on the other edge of the footprint, and therefore you got a pretty good cross distance as a result. The Eagle satellite we're building will go into a different orbit. It will go into what we call a high Earth orbit satellite, and it will therefore go into an orbit that will have an apogee that is the highest point above the Earth at about 40,000 kilometers. And at 40,000 kilometers, you will see one half of the Earth. And so now I'm in Concord, North Carolina, and I can work amateurs in Europe, I can work amateurs in Africa, South America, and then another day, when the satellite's on the other side of my location, I can work Asia and you know, the Hawaiian Islands and, you know, places in between. So the footprint of the satellite will dictate the coverage that that satellite will have, and then amateurs like to talk to people around the world, so we do it for that particular application. They also have a digital capability. We can actually upload files, images, data, whatever, and pass messages and pass files to another ham that has the capability of picking up that data off that satellite. We put cameras on these satellites, so they take a snapshot of the Earth, and you can download that snapshot to a ham on the ground.
And that's, for you to talk 700 kilometers, is a 9 by 9 inch cube.
Yes, weighing about 25 pounds.
Wow.
It's got a receiver and it's got a transmitter. So you uplink on one frequency, and it retransmits on a different frequency back to the ground.
So how, if I was a ham, how would I work the satellite?
Well, that's a good question. What basically you have to have is, first you need to know when is a satellite going to be in your neighborhood. So there are programs available on various computers, PC environment, Macintosh environment, Linux environment, that are satellite tracking programs. And so you set the computer up with the what we call Keplerian data. It's the element set that describes the orbit for a particular satellite. You feed that in the computer. It calculates then when will that satellite be in your neighborhood, and then gives you the azimuth and elevation, so that as the satellite moves from horizon to horizon, you know how to follow it with your antenna as it tracks from one horizon to the other. And then the second thing you have to have, of course, is a radio. And some of these satellites only need to use a handy-talkie. And since most hams today with a handy-talkie have a dual band handy-talkie, they can use both 70 centimeters and 2 meters. You therefore transmit on 2 meters and you receive on 70 centimeters, and you point your antenna at the satellite, and with a couple of watts you can work somebody else 700 kilometers away.
And anybody can use the satellite?
Any licensed amateur can work it who's got a technician class license, that's correct.
And what's this new satellite going to be able to do?
The new satellite we're building now is called Eagle, and that is going to be a very multifunctional satellite. Hams like to talk all at once, so you have multiple contacts happening at the same time. The FM satellite's a single channel. It's one guy talking at a time. Eagle will have a transponder that will have 100 kc of bandwidth, so that means you can put multiple contacts on at the same time, not interfere with one another. So I can have a conversation with you, another ham can have another conversation with someone in England, a third guy can have a conversation with someone in Indiana, and we don't interfere with one another. So we'll be able to work multiple contacts at the same time. The other thing we're doing is we're trying to develop new technology. And so one of the things we're looking at is, in today's world, to be able to work a satellite that's out at 40,000 kilometers, you have to have a pretty good size antenna to give you the gain to be able to reach that satellite with a strong enough signal, and then you have to have a good enough antenna to hear the returning signal. We're going toward higher microwave frequencies, and so we're looking at developing some things in the 5.6 gigahertz band that would be something that an apartment dweller could utilize. You know, a small dish, he puts it out when he wants to work the satellite and puts it away when he's finished. And therefore a guy doesn't have to have a house and real estate to be able to put a tower up. He simply has a small dish that he can use to operate that particular satellite. Now that's clearly new technology. We're trying to push the envelope, if you will. So it remains to be seen how successful it will be. But that's the vision that we have, to make it available for a ham anywhere in the world to have a high Earth orbit satellite available at any time, because we'll have several of these satellites in orbit at one time. and be able to work the world from their apartment house.
And if I was a ham and I was on, how would I get involved with AMSAT?
Well, AMSAT is based in Washington, D.C. We have a website. The web address is www.amsat.org. And on there you'll find a plethora of information regarding not only satellites in general and what does it take to work a satellite, some of the technical information, as well as detailed information about the satellites themselves. We also have an AMSAT web store where you can basically sign up to be a member of AMSAT. You can subscribe to various AMSAT news lists, if you will. We put on a weekly AMSAT news service bulletin you can subscribe to. You can subscribe to getting the Keplerian data that you have to load your computer with, and the like. So that's all available on the AMSAT website. Plus we have books and publications that are available that can be ordered through the AMSAT website.
I never knew that we had satellites at the hams. I consider myself a ham, even though I'm not.
Well, let me mention that we've been doing satellite demonstrations the last 2 days here at Hamvention, and the passes are done for today, but tomorrow we'll also be doing some passes. So if someone wants to stop by the AMSAT booth, we're in location 445 through 448 in the Ball Arena here. You can get the times for those passes and go out and actually watch some of our members doing a satellite pass with a handy-talkie and a handheld antenna and work somebody. Guys, today we're working guys in Canada. We're working guys down in the south part of the U.S. and the like with their handy-talkies.
With just a little handheld.
Right, and an antenna pointing at the satellite.
Is it hard to point it exactly at the satellite?
No, it's very. You don't have to be real accurate. These antennas have a pretty what we call a broad beam width, which means that the signal is going to be like 20 degrees wide. So as long as you're within 20 degrees of the true location of the satellite, you're going to get in. And so it's pretty easy to do that.
Now I have to go with my questions that I've been asking everybody.
Okay.
How long have you been coming to the Hamvention?
I first came to the Hamvention in 1978.
You too?
Whatever. I mean, what was ironic about this was I went to college here in Ohio. I went to Wittenberg up in Springfield. And I was a college student for 4 years. Didn't even know the Hamvention existed. And I was 25 miles from Hare Arena. I graduated from college. I was serving an active duty with the Navy. And I got my ham license over in Norfolk with the Navy. And then once I was a ham, I learned about the Dayton Hamvention. So I came out in '78 with my wife. She's a college graduate from Wittenberg as well. So we went and saw college friends here in the Dayton area, and then went to Hamvention. And since 1978, I've been to every one of them except 3.
Well, I've been to just about everyone but 3, and since I was born, and that was 1978, and I'm a big kid. That's why I said me too. Been here since I was in utero, basically.
Right.
Since you've been here so many years, is there anything that you really look forward to every year?
The thing that I look forward to about Hamvention is seeing the people that you come to know and appreciate over the years. And so it is a big social gathering for me in terms of seeing people. Like, for example, Sunday night I'm going to see some college friends, but also in the ham radio community. I mean, I see people here from various parts of the world around the country that I've gotten to know either through my affiliation with AMSAT or simply operating as a radio amateur and talking to people and being able to put the faces with the call signs and the names and being able to do that. The second reason I like to come to Hamvention is that typically a lot of new stuff is announced at Hamvention. The dealers are getting new product, the manufacturers are announcing new product, and so you get to see it first pretty much at Dayton. So it's sort of fun to go around, see what's being announced that's new and kind of exciting, where's the hobby trending, if you will, in terms of toys, and getting an opportunity to see what that's all about.
Is there anything you're especially looking for this year?
Anything I'm especially looking for in terms of equipment, you mean?
Anything.
What I'm looking forward this year with AMSAT is making sure that our members and others understand the direction that AMSAT is taking. So we had an AMSAT forum this morning that was well attended. We had about 250 people there. And we had a four-part presentation. One, our president talked about the vision and mission, the direction that AMSAT is taking, where we want to get into the situation where we have continuous coverage with these high Earth orbit satellites we talked about. We had the project manager for Eagle talk about the status, so it was good to hear where we stand in terms of the development of the program. We had a person from AMSAT UK, that's AMSAT United Kingdom, who has in fact built a transponder that is going to be launched in August. That will be available for amateur use later this year. So to learn about that opportunity. And then amateur radio is involved with the International Space Station. I presume people know that there's an amateur station that's actually on the space station. And the astronauts and cosmonauts that are serving on the space station use amateur radio to make school contacts with various schools around the world. Plus, there's amateur equipment that guys on the ground can access as well. Well, one of the things we heard about this morning was an opportunity called SuitSat, where the Russians have a surplus spacesuit that is no longer qualified for human use. And what do you do with garbage in space? Well, it's too expensive to bring it back to the ground, so they typically discharge it. Eventually, it re-enters the Earth atmosphere and is burnt up. But we're going to put some ham equipment in that spacesuit. And there's going to be an opportunity for us to put a transmitter on that thing and transmit some data and some voice, voice recordings, if you will. And people will be able to hear that on amateur radio. So we heard about SuitSat this morning, and what's the status of that project. Right now they're projecting that SuitSat will be launched from the space station on September 15th. And it should last for about 2 or 3 weeks before the batteries run out. And then eventually the spacesuit will actually re-enter the Earth's atmosphere and burn up. So, I mean, there's something new and different that we heard about at Hamvention this year.
So they're going to put actual ham radio gear in the suit?
Right.
Is the equipment already on the space station?
The spacesuit is already in the space station. The ham equipment is going to be put into the space station later, I believe in July, on a Progress space mission. You know, they have to send supply missions up to the space station to give them food and water and all of that and parts. It'll be launched into the space station with a Progress launch later this year.
So they're just going to send it out into space from the space station,
right?
And you guys will be able to talk with the space station?
It's a one-way communication. It'll be transmitting a signal to the ground. And so it'll be a voice, digitized voice recording. There's actually going to be the ability to send a picture. They'll have a pre-recorded picture that someone can receive on the ground and display on their computer. And then just setting up, just basic information like that. So it's going to be a very simple system. It's not two-way, it's one-way. But it's kind of exciting. I mean, think about, the other thing they're going to do is schools have the opportunity to send in an 8.5 by 11 picture done by the students. And that'll be digitized and put on a CD and placed on the spacesuit. So if you think about it, here's an opportunity for students to help with a spacewalk, because their particular picture will in fact be walking in space, along with all the other students that send pictures in to be digitized. Place it on a CD, put the CD in the spacesuit, and symbolically, if you will, they'll be participating in that spacewalk.
That's so
or a spacesuit walk, I guess you might say.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I had never thought about the fact that what they do is stuff that they can't be used anymore.
Right. So I encourage people, get with the AMSAT webpage, www.amsat.org. You find out about AMSAT, find out about the satellites. There's a link on our page to what's happening with ARIS, that's amateur radio on the International Space Station. They announce what school contacts are coming up. They announce what's the status of various projects that are being built, because there's going to be additional amateur radio equipment put on the space station down the road. So there's giving reports about how the things stand with that process. And it's an international effort. It's not just U.S. hams that are involved with this. The League is involved with it. But you've got hams in Russia involved, hams in Germany, hams in the U.K., hams in Japan. There's actually a group that's coordinating and working on all this. So true international effort.
Real international thing.
Right.
Which is always good.
Yep.
Well, I thank you for coming and talking with us.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about AMSAT.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a good day.
This has been another edition of the AMSAT Newsreel.